You're now listening to the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. Straightforward, no nonsense business advice. Completely unfiltered. Grow your business. Grow your life. Now, here's your host, Brian Fullerton.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Well, welcome to another episode of the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. It is your host, Brian Fullerton. Guys, thanks so much for joining us on this episode. Guys, we have a super special treat for you guys. We have none other than the man, Jeremy Jacobs, a.k.a. Jeremy Knecht, which is your real last name. So, Jeremy, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
Hey, Brian. It's awesome to have the opportunity to be on with you.
Yes.
And doing great. So we are ready to do this.
Dude, you and I were talking for about a half hour before we hit the record button, just catching up and getting to know each other more. And when I get to talk about listen to people off air, if you will, before we hit record, and I have a good conversation beforehand, I get even more excited and amped up. And man, you and I are kindred spirits. I'm just a fan. You have so many good things going on with your business, and so this will be a really good episode. So. Before I turn into an excited schoolgirl and we start going down the rabbit hole here, why don't we slow down to speed up? Why don't you take 30 to 60 seconds? And for those of us that are listening that don't know you and your story, why don't you just tell them a little bit about yourself so they kind of know who you are?
Yep. Yeah, sure. So basically, like a lot of guys, green industry has been my life. Came out of high school working in this industry. I worked for another company, and it basically got to the point where I was looking for more of a challenge, and went on my own in 2009. And with the help of my wife and family, we've been able to pull this off for 10 years. And I want to make it a lifetime job for myself. I really like it, and it's a very healthy type of occupation to be in. I hope to carry it on.
I love it, man. Well, this is going to be really good. If you guys want to learn how to grow your business from an owner-operator, and I always talk about the 2 or 3 different seasons. At least that's how it's always presented to me. That 0 to 250K year revenue, that owner-operator guy, I would personally proclaim I'm in that category. I love it. There's like that next season, the $250,000 to $1 million, $1.5 million, that I've had so many people describe it. And then there's like the big fish, right? The $2 to $5 million companies. Well, you guys are in for a treat because Jeremy is in this position where he's got a budding, growing company. He's got about 5 to 10 guys that are working with him, most of them pretty much full time. So if you guys are trying to grow your company, go into that next season, we're going to talk about how he grew his business. We're going to talk about financials and money, how he's been able to use that, how he's been able to scale, how his attitude and mindset about all this stuff. And then also just talk about family life. I mean, you guys have 4 kids, I think 1 on the way. Is that right, Jeremy? And
yep, that's right. Yep,
which is crazy. So it's got to be something in the water in Illinois. So here we go. So this will be a really good episode. So let's do this. Let's hear from the announcements, and then we'll unpackage your story, me.
Hey, lawn and landscape pros.
I'm talking to you.
Don't let your edge go dull.
Your competitive edge.
Sharpen your edge at the GIE Plus Expo this October 21st through the 23rd in Louisville, Kentucky.
Understand the words coming out of my mouth?
Innovative products, latest technology. Talk face-to-face with engineers that design your favorite equipment. Then step outside and dive into the hands-on demo area, where you can drive, dig, and compare equipment to your heart's delight.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
This year, the wow gets even bigger with the new UTV test track,
the hands-on drone zone,
and free parking. Register now at GIE-Expo.com, and we'll see you in Louisville, Kentucky this October.
All right. So, Jeremy, I'm really excited about having you unpackage your story here because you were telling me so many things before we hit record. So, without me taking the whole mic and the whole afternoon, let's get into your story. So, you're probably 33, 34 right now, right? You were saying?
Yep. So I'm 34 years old, and really got into this right in the beginning of my high school year, back in year 2000. Actually, I was a freshman. And got a summer job working for a local landscape company. And that's where I really started to develop a love for the green industry. I liked working hard. I like to see plants. My mom had a flower garden, and I was always the one out there transplanting stuff and watering it. And I just really developed a love for the green industry. And so through high school, I just kept working for this landscape company. And I learned a lot of the plants that are used in our area. There were some guys that I worked with that really challenged me to learn like the scientific names for different plants. And so we'd go out and I'd be able to, he'd say, what is this? And I'd say, that's a maple. And he's like, well, yeah, but what's the scientific name? I was like, well, that's Acer saccharinum. That's sugar maple, And so
wow.
through
awesome.
through high school, by the time I got out of high school, like I knew all the scientific names for like probably, 80% of all the plants here in our region.
Wow.
And
that's awesome.
I love the industry, and I knew that I just had a heart for it. So I wanted to stay in it, but my big question and the question is, can you make a living in this industry and working for someone else or even on your own? A lot of naysayers in our area because we're surrounded by there's Caterpillar and there's State Farm, and it's like that's pretty much you go to college, you get a degree as an engineer, or you go to college, you get a degree in accounting, and then you get a job starting out $50,000, and then in a few years making $70,000, and that's just kind of the way of life for like most of the people in my area. And I was like, I want to work outside. I want to get dirty, and so I talked with my boss right after high school, and he's like, he's like, we got a position here for you. I'll even help you if you want to go to college and get some more further learning. So I really prayed about it, and I felt like that was the right thing to do, was to go ahead and go to college and stay in this industry. And so that's what I did. I went to a little community college. I actually do not even have a degree. I just took some classes in plant identification, and I learned how to identify trees without their leaves on them. I learned how to, reproduce different plants, different ways. And there was just a lot of head knowledge, which I'm super happy I have today, because it's really hard to discipline yourself to learn that on your own. It's possible. You can do online stuff now and learn it, but it takes a ton of discipline. So I'm really glad I got that out of my way back then. And so, it's probably, 21 years old or something. And I was working for this company, and I wanted to switch gears. I wanted more of a challenge. And so they also had a nursery where they grew different stuff in the greenhouse. So I started working there for a few years, still was not able to like quench that thirst of a greater challenge. And at the time, like I said, I was like probably 23. I was married now, and we had one child. And obviously when you're at that stage, you need to provide for your own. You need to provide for your wife and your family. And I was able to do that by working with this other company, but I still wanted more. And that's when we really prayed about going into business on my own. And I was going to start a landscape lighting business. That's what I had done, some landscape lighting, and I really enjoyed it. And it seemed like
I love lighting.
Super niche. It's like a niche market where there was like nobody in my area that specialized in just lighting.
Right.
And like the overhead is hardly anything. You need like a few tools, a shovel, some wire crimps, some wire nuts, and like you can do it. And so that was like that's what I thought I was going to do. J. Jacobs Lighting. I already thought that's what I was going to do, but I basically went to my employer and I said, hey, I'm going to be shutting things down, and I'm going to be starting my own business here at the end of the summer. And it just caught him broadside. He did not see it coming at all.
Wow.
And
how old were you, by the way, at the time? 20,
I think
25?
this would have been like not quite. I would have been, it would have been 2008. So I think I would have been right around 23, something like that.
Wow. Good
my
for you.
math's terrible. My mental math's terrible. Sometimes I wonder how I succeed being a business owner when I can't even do my mental math. But
it's called having a team around you. That's what works for me.
Right. Delegate, man. Find somebody that does it better.
Amen. So
anyhow,
you're going into lighting, and now were you doing maintenance then, or were you is that what your focus was, starting a lighting business with the green industry?
That's what I was going to do was start this lighting business. But he's like, so he had a big landscape corporation. Like he had a mowing crew, he had a landscape construction crew, and he had a nursery.
Wow.
And I was working at the nursery, and he's like, would you be interested in buying out my mowing division? And this took me broadside, because I was like totally not expecting this myself. I was thinking I was going to have to go out and like start
Beat the
stuff from
pavement.
scratch.
Yep.
So I went home to Kelsey. I told John today that I was shutting it down, and he wants to sell me his mowing crew. What do you think about that? We're like, no way. Like, I knew there was like there was opportunity in mowing, but like long term, I was going to get burnt out on mowing. Didn't want to do that.
Right.
But we were sitting in church, and the sermon was going on, and it just really spoke to me. It was the story. There was a story in the Old Testament about a man named Jacob, coincidentally, and he was basically working for a man named Laban, and he was basically working for this man so that he could marry this man's daughter. And basically, he ended up working for him. He married that daughter, and they had these farm animals that they had between each other. And there came a time where Jacob and this man Laban split the flocks. They split the herd. And I just remember the minister was saying, it just spoke right to me. He was saying, you know, it was just what a blessing it was when Jacob and Laban were able to peacefully divide the herd, divide the sheep or goats or whatever it was. And it was just a peaceful time. And it just made me think of me and this guy I had been working for and how we were going to divide his company. And it was a peaceful thing. It just felt right down in my heart.
That's awesome,
that's all
dude.
I needed.
That's awesome.
And it also ties the whole name, J. Jacobs, because like my last name is Knecht, and J. Jacobs, my middle name's Jacob in the Bible. It just all tied it all together.
Were you like, give me a sign? And God's like, well, I can't make this any more relatable than that. So.
Right. I wasn't even actually like seeking a sign. I remember we had like I don't know how old our daughter was at that time, but I was like in the baby room of church, like trying to get her to sleep and listening to the sermon playing over the speaker, like in a totally dark room, like trying to get her to sleep. And it was just, it was just
I need
God
to hear this
talking
one.
to me. And I made the decision right there. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to buy this mowing company. So after church, walked out to Kelsey, we're going to do this. My wife's name's Kelsey. And I said, Kelsey, we're going to do this. And she's like, how can you just make a decision this fast? I said, I just have a feeling deep inside it's the right thing to do. So
nice. Make a decision and make it right.
And I'll kind of just go briefly just how the whole process of how we evaluated the company that he had and what I paid for it and stuff. So basically, he had pretty much a man and a half crew. It wasn't big. They were generating about $100,000 a year in gross revenue. And what we did, we just took a number. We took 30% of gross, which 30% of 100,000 is 30,000. So I paid $30,000 for the accounts. So basically, and this was in September. So when I took over September 1st, 2009, those however many accounts, those were mine. I went out there, did the work, got paid for them, and it cost me $30,000 to acquire those accounts. And then he also had one Isuzu straight truck and 3 zero-turns that I paid for, and the whole package was like a $50,000 deal, something like that. So I bought the business, the truck, 3 mowers for $50,000.
Yeah.
I also took, so I had some money in my bank account, but we didn't want to use that at this time. So what I did, I went to the bank, I took out an $80,000 loan. So I took $80,000 out, paid $50,000 to him, and that gave me $30,000 to basically use to pay for fuel, to pay for weed eaters, to pay just operating expenses until I started getting income coming in.
Okay, cool.
So that's how I got going, and that's how J. Jacobs got started. That first year would have been 2010 then, and I got some high school kids to come help me do some mulching, to do some spring cleanups. They helped me on the mowing. And that first year, we went from $100,000 to $200,000.
Wow! Awesome.
In gross revenue.
Awesome.
We picked up a used F-250, which I kind of used to drive around, and they were mainly in the mowing truck and stuff. I was, working side by side, and it was, looking back now, it's like the glory days. Like it was a pain when it was going on, but they were full of energy. They would get out of school at 3:30 and they would want to just work till dark. Like, hey, Jeremy, where do you want me? And they were, they were just kicking and ready to go. And it gave me energy then to just saddle up beside them and work till dark and get the work done. So
I love it.
I started pretty much right away with employees because going solo, I just could not. You get behind a couple days with the rain or something, and I wasn't able to fulfill my obligations. So
Well,
started out that way.
It's so many good things right there that, God, I mean, we could do the whole podcast just on this, first 15 minutes because that's just fire, dude. Well, and I have so many folks that come to me asking about buying or selling accounts. So and by the way, I super appreciate you being candid and just open because, it's nobody's business what you did, but if you can help it, the next guy out, I know that's one of your MOs for even doing this is, just to be honest with people. And that's something that you wanted to get across, which is just awesome. When I did a video, buying and selling accounts, the most I've ever sold off was, it was probably 15% of my business. I sold off 22 accounts. I sold them for $100 each because that's what they brought in a month. I just, I wanted to get out of this section of town. It was 25 minutes out of my route. It was called like buying and selling accounts. If everybody wants to watch the YouTube video, I thought it was pretty good. It was my first experience, so I wasn't trying to be the authority on it, but it brought in $2,000 a month. I said, I'll sell it for $2,000. 20 out of 20 people transferred over to my friend. He paid me $1,000 2 months later, and another $1,000 like 3 or 4 months later. So it was a really easy transition. If you don't mind me asking, was there any super deep thought about how much the lawns are bringing in, or what I'm talking about? People get lost in the weeds on this one, right. But what was the general? How'd you guys come up with a $30,000 number? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, so we basically we had a third party that was like a CPA accounting firm, and we used them to kind of come up with the evaluation. And honestly, at the time, I did not look at the numbers at all. You'll find out I am not a numbers guy.
Sure, that's
my
fine.
wife is. Like, she will put a pen and paper to everything we do. We're big Dave Ramsey's, and she's the Every Dollar app, and she's always saying, "Hey, did you bring that receipt home?" I'm like, "Oh no, shoot, I don't have it." And
right.
So, but anyway, we used a third party to come up with that sale number, and I've since purchased 2 other companies since we started, and I've used that same number, 30% of gross sales, and it seems like a fair number in our area. And whether or not those accounts are actually profitable and stuff like that, I guess I take the risk.
Right. I'm always just curious.
So, yeah.
Well, because some guys, I had one guy present to me. He's like, "Yeah, I'm trying to buy this $100,000 company off of this other guy," and I think that was gross. And the guy selling it to him said, "Yeah, no problem, $450,000." And the guy who, it was actually a one-on-one coaching call. A lot of people buy my $99 coaching call, and I'm like, well, so we were getting into it and trying to dissect this, and I said, "Dude, I don't know where your friend's coming up with these numbers." And I go, "Where is your friend coming up with these numbers?" Because that's right. I'm kind of with you. I'm like, I would pay 10 to 20, maybe 30% of the customer base, but there's no guarantee. I said the equipment has.
There wasn't. Yep.
Yeah, the equipment has its intrinsic value. I mean, it's just like if it's a $10,000 mower, maybe he wants to sell it to you for $9,000 because he's got an offer ready for a buyer ready. But you're not really going to get a $10,000 mower for $4,000 when you're buying a business. Like, it's the guy can sell the route or he can sell the equipment. To me, it's kind of like 2 transactions. But the guy wanted $450,000 or $450,000 for just the customers, and I'm like, I go, that's a bad. I go, he goes, well, that's what the business would bring in over the next 5 years. I said, or something like that. I'm like, dude, like that's so like. Okay, Verizon, okay, IBM trying to like do a merger or a buyout like that. But dude, we're lawn care landscaping guys. Like, I'm not saying like we lessen our value. I'm just saying I don't know if those numbers play out, bro. Like if I can't usually pay off something in like 60 to 90 days, I usually don't buy it. Or unless I can pay it off in, like, if it's a big ticket, 18 to 24 months. So anyway, I was just curious. That's a really good little rabbit hole that I just had to ask you about. Because
I do think, if you're in the green industry, a mowing company or a fertilizing company is a better company to sell than if you just do hardscapes, because
recurring income, recurring revenue.
Right. Yep. So there is more value, I believe, in getting a maintenance type of a company rather than something that's hardscapes and is really sales based month to month.
Right. Well, okay. So now let's just continue the story because this is really good. I'm enjoying this. So we're going through the lineage of your story. You're going into your mid-20s and then late 20s. The business continues to grow. Are you guys doing more maintenance? Are you guys doing fertilizing? And then what was some of how did you start scaling the business and growing the business? Because I think that's the question everybody wants to know is how did you start growing the company that big?
Yeah. So we did. We got into lawn treatments pretty much right away. I had an applicator's license basically when I worked back at that nursery.
Oh, cool.
So it just made sense, and I was familiar with a lot of the funguses and diseases and stuff. So it really made a lot of sense to get into that. That way we could manage the properties that we were mowing and not have any, schedule conflicts with treatments and mowing and all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we went ahead and got into that. And I was able to, basically my office was in our house for probably the first 4 years. And then we were able to find a building close to where we live to rent. And inside of it is like a 15 by 15 area that I made into an office. Like it was really nasty, like drop ceiling. And it was just moldy in there.
Is that the one I've seen on Instagram?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've got some before and after pictures somewhere, but it was really rough.
The one with the racks, and all that. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So
okay.
we moved into there, and that was like a huge help because, at this time we had probably, at least one more kid, maybe two more kids, and trying to separate family time with work time when your office is inside of your house is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and while we were doing this, so Kelsey, my wife, she actually is sometimes in my mind more of an entrepreneur than myself. She started a online clothing store, and so she was actually working out of our basement. And people would be coming to our house trying on clothes, and then we were shipping stuff out. Like literally the FedEx guy and UPS guy and the USPS, like they were always carrying like big boxes of stuff in and out of our house, and it just seemed crazy. So she was growing that, but there came a time where we had to like look at ourselves and look at our kids and say, what do we want to do? We get these kids that we're trying to raise, we get one shot at it.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're doing right now, financially is working great, but as a family, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And we were using crutches as far as, you'd be somewhere and you're like, okay, just watch this or something. You pull something up so the kids can just watch something for a while and you can go do your work.
Mm-hmm.
And all they want is your time. They want your attention, and you're so wrapped up in whatever you're doing. So that was like there came a point where we had to make a decision which business, because we're not really good people at hiring people to manage for us. Especially in her store that she had, we just never could find that person that could take her spot. So what we ended up doing was selling her business and just focusing on Jay Jacobs. And my wife, Kelsey, she has since just moved into the role of being a mom and a wife. And I'm so glad she's where she's at and not still trying to do her online thing where it was very profitable business, but it wasn't worth it at the cost of the kids. So,
wow. That's awesome. Well, people, by the way, I love the side hustle. All my YouTube and this and the podcast, it's all our side hustle. I don't know if I'll be able to go at the same pace when we have kids, but, so I'm just running now while I can. Liz and I want to go into the next season of our life this summer, hopefully. And do the whole deal. But, I think having a side hustle is awesome. And you guys grew a significant side hustle. You were telling me some numbers before we hit record, and I'm just thoroughly impressed because I'm like, I have like a fraction going on what you guys do, and you have kids and you're, it's just impressive. So that's why I just wanted to have your thought process on this, which is really cool. So then you guys she's quarterbacking a lot of things with you behind the scenes and keeping your life together, which that's people, Jeremy, people always ask, what does Liz do? I'm like, everything. And like, can you quantify that? I'm like, you just need to live with us for a day. Whether it's keeping the house clean, making sure I eat food. And you're like, what do you mean eat food? I'm like, dude, I just go. I go so hard that it's 9 p.m. at night. And I go, I didn't even eat today. And she goes, well, what did you have last night for dinner? I go, I'm not sure if I did. And people are like, that's how hard I'm going right now. And I don't sleep, I don't eat, and it's like, how do you live? Well, because Liz eventually like sneaks me a Nature Valley bar, and she's like, hey, and so like I always say I'm the head, but she's the neck, and without her, dude, my life would implode in like probably 2 weeks, maybe. And so I know what you're talking about, dude. Especially that you guys got kids. I can't relate to that yet, but I mean, man, women behind the scenes like are just the rock, and at least my wife is. I know Kelsey is for you too. It sounds like.
So she basically, and I want to just kind of go off on this just a little bit. So she is a very conservative-minded individual, especially financially, and just like you're saying, dieting and what you eat and all that. So we took out that $80,000 loan. We also bought a house that same year. So like we were like. We were living in an apartment before. Our expenses were hardly anything, and all of a sudden we got this $80,000 loan plus like a $90,000 loan out on a house, and we're working our tails off. But she really, really helped me to get out of debt as quick as you can. So I think it probably took us about 3 seasons to get that $80,000 paid down to nothing.
Okay, very cool.
But then from like 2014 to 2017. We were generating probably in the 300s now as far as annual revenue, and we're talking years 3 through years 5 or so, and we still had to take an operating loan out in the spring. So every spring, probably about March or so, I would go to the bank and take just like a $40,000 operating loan to help with the influx of buying mulch and buying fertilizer and all that, and then by August. We would get that paid down all the way, so it went away. But we did that all the way up until 2017. And in 2017, our gross revenue now, we're talking up in the $500,000 range annual revenue. And I had I think there was probably like 8 of us working. We would have anywhere from like 2 to 3 mowing crews, and then kind of another crew doing like odd jobs, and maybe a crew out doing weeding. So there'd be, 8 of us. We only have 5 trucks, so it's not like we can just cover a ton of different bases at once. But,
Sure.
So that's where we were kind of at, and we were able to cash flow 2018, and then last year, 2019, able to cash flow, and it's a decent feeling. We haven't just skyrocketed, and I made a post on Instagram just the other day where 2019, so last year, our income was actually 14% less than it was in 2018, and that was like really hard for me because we had always grown from year to year to year to year, and like last year, I remember going on QuickBooks and running a report, and I just could not keep up with 2018. I was like, what is going on? I felt like we were cranking out the work. But here's what it was. We were doing way less landscape construction. So we weren't buying shrubs. We weren't buying bricks. We weren't buying blocks. And all that gets transferred, because the customer has to pay for that. So that just inflates your gross revenue.
The top
so
number.
It was kind of like
top number.
Yeah. So, right. Yes. So 2018 was kind of like, it looked like we almost hit 700,000. It looked like, wow, that was a really good year. But, you take out 4 of those big landscape construction jobs, and now you're down to, 500,000.
100%.
So it was kind of like a mental thing to get past, because our net was still good in 2019, but it was just like, looking at those numbers and know what they actually meant. So that's kind of size-wise where we are right now. And honestly, I am really content. We're probably going to hit, somewhere in that 600, 650 here this coming season in 2020. But we probably won't do a ton of landscape construction jobs and just keep working on efficiency and systems. But Kelsey, my wife, she was really the one that helped me financially and mentally just not go out there and take big risks just to grow. Don't go out there and just, put a bid on that huge shopping center, even though it's a low bid just to get it. And you got to get another truck and more guys to take care of it. And your margins are not so great. She's always cautioned me on that type of thing. just to keep a clean, and it's a really good clean feeling too, just to know that, yeah, you know what, I'm not going to look at all my growth numbers all the time. I just know that what we have is working. And then what's important is that your employees are enjoying what they're doing. They're happy when they come into work, and the environment at work is a very positive place. And that really starts with every owner or manager or whatever. That it's got to start right there. And it helps me. So I work with a lot of young guys. I mean, most of our employees are anywhere from 17 years of age up to like 26. And so I'm working with a generation where, they're very fast paced and their attention span is like 10 seconds. So like if you're talking to them in the office, like you need to capture it, you need to make it funny, you need to engage them, because otherwise you're going to lose them.
It's not always about the money with those guys too. That's they like.
No, it isn't. It's about the experience, and we go out to eat at least once a week, I would say, on the business. We just go to Chili's, or we go somewhere nice, just like at lunchtime if we're not too dirty, and we sit around. We have a good hour-long lunch, and everybody enjoys it. And I think we've created a culture that's very unique, because word gets around both with our customers and then with potential new employees that, J. Jacobs, it's kind of a fun place to work. You get to work outside, you get to work with people your age. Hopefully they're saying Jeremy's a good guy to work for. And we make it worth it. We usually start out our employees, if they're in high school, they're going to be somewhere between $11 and $12 an hour. And then once they get into, college, and if they've been with us a couple of years, they're making, anywhere from like 14 to 16 an hour. And then the ones that are more full-time are in the upper teens, some around 20. So I feel like we try to make it work. We're not going to start them out at $9 an hour and make them work their tails off.
Right.
I feel like we can make it worth it for them.
This is I got a couple of tips that I want to maybe weigh in a little bit more on this one, because this is a really helpful topic. To be honest with you, like a lot of guys, I field the question all the time, Jeremy, like, where do you find people? How do you find people? How do you keep people? So let's do this. Let's change it up. Let's hit the announcements really quick, just to kind of break it up. I'm going to get a sip of water here, and then let's talk about this topic for a few more minutes, because I think this is going to be really helpful for folks.
Sounds great. Thanks.
We want to thank the lawn and landscape community for making GIE Plus Expo their place to reunite as an industry. Like a family reunion, thousands of dealers, landscape pros, and contractors return annually to network, share ideas, learn best practices, and make new friends. It all starts Wednesday, October 21st with the opening reception, and continues into the night with free concerts in downtown Louisville. At the show, you'll have the opportunity to share experiences and brainstorm new approaches to your business challenges with friends and like-minded professionals. You don't want to miss the opening keynote, Secrets of Being an Effective Leader, presented by retired Navy 4-star Admiral James Stavridis. Register now at GIE-expo.com, and we'll see you October 21st through the 23rd in Louisville.
Hey, so I want to hear some more tips about this topic, because a lot of folks, when you're an owner operator, and you want to get an extra guy or maybe two guys, or you got to go through this crucible as you grow your company to that $250,000, $500,000 range. You need people, man. I mean, it's it's a replenishable resource, but you don't want to necessarily have to replenish it year after year. And there's so many young guys that I've had work for me for 1, 2, 3 seasons. So it's funny, like, people are like, where do you get good people? So Jeremy, you'll laugh at this, but I had a family friend. He's 45. He had his son work with me who was 17. That young man worked for me for 3 years. Then decided to go to he was going to one of the military schools, like really prestigious, up in the Northeast. Gosh, it's slipping my mind. West Point, duh. So before he left, I go, no. I go, how my company works. You got to find your replacement. He's like, what? And so this is one thing I do. I really do say this. I go, all right, you got to find your replacement. And they're like, what? I'm like,
hilarious.
I go, well, because here's the deal, man. They have 400 friends, that age group, and they all want to make some summer cash, right? And so he gets me his friend who played baseball. So I get this kid, Aaron, working for me. Aaron was a great kid and worked for me for 3 years. He was in some of my very first videos, if people know, go deep. And so Aaron was a baseball kid, but he was 18. He was a freshman, right? So he's working with me for 2 years, 3 years. And because in Michigan and just I guess in general, our colleges aren't exclusive. But when you go through the college mill by junior year, if not your senior year, you need to have co-ops and internships, right? And so I always tell these guys, I know they're good for about 2 to 3 years. Well, Aaron, had to get his big boy job, so he starts the intern. And I said, all right, dude, 3 years, it's been great. These guys helped me, May through August, September, which is, usually what I need. And then I say, all right, cool, dude. Well, you're out. It's been a good run. Don't forget to find your replacement. And he's like, what? And so swear to God, he gets me his teammate who also plays baseball, who was in one league, I think before or after him or something like that. So same thing. That kid helps me out for 2 years. And then after that, literally, you just rinse and repeat, And so that's what, because here's the deal. That kid got his brother, and his brother helped me for 2 years, who was 2 years younger, right? So, people are just always, so here's what you're doing. As you grow a company, you're always trying to sell, you're always trying to create a vision, you're always trying to recruit. Like, those are just, and you're always building culture. Those things are incredibly important. Now, when you hire somebody, if you can have overlap with a new or a current employee with a new employee, yes, I teach and train my new employees, but I let my team, even if it's one guy, dude, I let my employees teach the new guy what's expected, right? It's that wolf pack instinct. And so I'm not always top down, in fact, I don't think that's what leadership is. But, and I'm always correcting and I'm always teaching and training too. But I let people come into my company, even as an owner operator, and we got 2 or 3 guys. I let my employees teach my current employees. And of course, like I said, I'm doing quality checks and quality control. That's what you do. But again, you keep building this culture of, hey, Brian's an awesome dude. Brian pays well. I mean, literally, my friend who got his other baseball friend, the word on the street was, yeah, dude, I'm working for this guy making like $13 an hour. And the other kid was like, dude, I'm working at, I think it was like Jake Crew at the mall. And, he's like 18. They're giving him 8 hours a month. And he's making like you said, $775. I mean, literally. And I'm like, dude, give me that kid's number. Like, have him come work for me, man. Is he smart? Yeah. Is he athletic? Because that's my qualification. Is he going to be good in the heat? Is he going to run around and kick butt? He's like, well, he's an athlete. I'm like, I need athletes. That's what I need. That's perfect. So anyway, that
is a really, really, really cool concept, because you nailed it right on the head. Nobody knows what type of employee you need as well as your current employees. They know, okay, this is the guy you need. He's going to get along really well with you. He doesn't mind doing this type of work, and he's going to do a really good job. I feel like the employees themselves know
the type of person.
The type of person better than even probably myself, because I just don't know who's all out there.
Well, and check this out. If my friend Aaron hires his friend Connor, and Connor ends up being a moron, Aaron is going to course correct Connor. Right. So there's a culture.
Yep, he's got to deal with it.
Exactly. There's a standard. So I always tell these guys, hey, don't hire bozos. Give me your good friend. And they have that Xbox friend, and then they have their athlete friend. They have their friend who hustles, and then they have their friend who, does stupid stuff. Right. We'll just leave it at that. Yep. And so once you put that into your culture and into your organization, that's where you can keep finding this talent. And by the way, every 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 25-year-old kid, they all come back, for summer break. They all come back for college. Eventually, I graduate them. I kick them out of my company. I say, look, you're not coming back. If you're a senior in college and you're putting these big boy applications in, look, you are not welcome back at my company next year. And it's a joke, but I'm like, look, this isn't your end game. So don't let the addiction of $14, $16 an hour keep you from your career. My company is a great start, horrible finish, but we know that expectation going into it when I hire them in. And so,
right. Yeah.
But that's how I keep the mill going with these younger guys is, hey, you got 400 friends on Instagram. You got 400 friends on Facebook. Who's that young kid that is 2 years younger? You got a younger brother, a younger sister. Come on, hook me up. Give me, I call it, this sounds really bad, but I call it fresh meat for the grinder, like help me out, and dude, they all, that's just something that's worked for me. So anyway, So
I want to just think two different things that I want to talk about on this subject. So basically, probably the most gratifying thing about being a business owner, and it sounds kind of, I didn't ever think it would be this way, but probably the most great things is when you can hire someone and then it comes to the point where they can do a task that you never thought they would be able to do. They can now do that task way better than you can yourself.
100%.
And so there was this one gal that we hired, and summer one, she had never ran a zero turn hardly at all. So the first summer she was working for us, a lot of training, a lot of mistakes. I'm like, you know what, you're going to have that with this. So got through that first year. Second year, got her back on a mower. She was out at a super, super easy, big property, just get it mowed, make it look nice. And I was just shaking my head. It looked horrible. And I was like, what is going on? And like,
who taught you that?
I was like, I was just so close to just telling her, just, you know what, it's not going to work out with our company. But later that summer, and then she developed into our best lawnmower that you can imagine. Like stripes were laser straight. She did every place in the most efficient way. Like I could not beat her time and still produce the quality that she produced. She could edge crispy straight. She knew how to blow the grass so it didn't just collect around the edge of the sidewalk. I mean, just everything.
Yeah.
And that is probably, and then it's not just mowing, it's then you got office work and hire someone there, and then all of a sudden they're doing way better. They're way more thorough with your customers and get back to your customers quicker with email than you could yourself.
Yep.
That's probably the most gratifying thing is when it's all working. Now, there is definitely the headaches in between when you're trying to get to that point where you're just shaking your head and you're just, this is ridiculous. I'm just going to lay them all off and do it all myself. There's that mentality that sneaks in there.
Yep.
Okay, so that's point number one. The second one is what you kind of mentioned a little bit. We're getting to the point now where we need to find people that are willing to make this their career. And this is the stepping stone that is the hardest one so far for me, is because to make that happen, we're not talking 25, 30,000 a year now. We're talking 50,000, 60,000 a year, health insurance, big time capital going up. And so we've got one individual that's on our staff now. Last year, she made, right at that 50,000. She's got a company vehicle, and she is my go-to in the office. She is awesome out in the field. So we've kind of got there with this individual, and it's working out really good. I didn't know it was kind of, she's got a 4-year degree, so she could quit my company and get a job no problem somewhere else. I really don't want that to happen. And to do that, you really, sometimes you just gotta take that leap of faith. Say, you know what, I'm going to provide you with this vehicle. We're going to make sure your income is this level, and just go on to the next level and not look back. And I haven't. It's gone really well. But I just want to encourage. I know there's probably guys out there that are like, man, do I commit to this person? Because and really in our industry, an hourly wage is nice, but when you're not guaranteeing them an income from December through April,
right?
That's a huge problem with people. So
to be honest with you, that's kind of where I'm at too. Like that's kind of potentially the next step or phase. If I have my guy Rob, he's helped me, and again, I'm not trying to make this a career out of for him, but if he wants to make 40 grand a year, again, he's 19, 20, so let's just to keep that number in mind. He doesn't have a wife, a kid, and mortgage, But yeah, a couple of tips if people are listening, to just, keep it full circle, is that number one, what I've noticed works for the young guys is fun, positive attitude, encouraging environment, team player. Like you get to work on a team, you get to work outside, You get to learn life skills, life lessons. Like those are way more attractive, believe it or not, than just, hey, we're making $12 an hour, $14 an hour. Because everybody in this economy has an option. They have choices. They have options. They can go arguably work anywhere right now because everybody's competing. And so that minimum higher end is $12 to $14 an hour. I mean, I call it for a 98.6, Jeremy.
Yep.
You got a warm body, but you don't know if the lights are on. Even if you're 98.6, you're going to pay 12 to 14. Now, when you want to go full time, and by the way, I'm not pontificating here, but listening to Jeremy and just other guys that I know are in this next season, like you're in, and as you continue to grow, one of the biggest attractors to keeping people in our industry is full-time employment. And that's why we talk about till I'm blue in the face that you got to know your numbers, because if you have a solid business with good margins, good profit, you might clean up in the spring, but you know what, that haul you make in April, May, June, July, August, you might have to understand that you need to spread that out through the winter months, and to keep those employees on staff. And by the way, that might also make, you might have to have some, what am I trying to say? You might have to be lean enough to run your company that way, whether even what Liz and I pay ourselves as a salary. I told Liz, hey, we might make a 40 grand paycheck out of doing 200 grand if I have 2 full-time employees and I got this quote unquote walk away income or this business. I said, but the idea is to keep our employees full-time staffed. Well, that means we're going to have to reduce our lifestyle or of course generate more income with another business, to supplement, right? So these are just things you got to keep in mind as you continue to grow. If you don't mind me asking, do you guys do snow removal or anything in the winter to help bridge that gap, or?
We do. I don't really get too many of my employees involved with it unless, we're going on vacation the next couple of weeks, so they are going to be taking over for me. But
okay, cool.
We don't really do a ton of that. Nope.
Okay, cool. No, I just wanted to ask because it's easier if you got year-round revenue to have year-round help. So that's something that I'm evaluating is I might buy another truck if I have a full-time guy and he can take the truck home and we'll get him a nice truck and he can also plow and we can expand our business. So that's always, my goal isn't to grow a 10 person company or anything like that. I'm really public with that. I'd rather personally supplement with growing my YouTube business or, doing real estate or having a network marketing business. Like there's 100 things you guys can do to continue to grow your finances. So I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. Just be thoughtful. And, especially when you start hiring people, just be thoughtful. Just make sure you got your crap together before you try to have somebody else entrust their future with you. Okay, like just at a baseline, do me a favor. Just be responsible as a business owner. Manage your business correctly because these people, they're depending on that paycheck. And don't think that making them hold a check or hey, I'll pay you in 2 weeks, because you don't have any cash. Like, no, don't hire someone unless you can pay them. Like that's just morally wrong and rant. So
yeah, that is so key. You've got to make it. You got to be the guy that they want to work for. I have just like a few little tips that I wrote down to make it a fun environment. And these are things that we actually do as a company. Mm-hmm. We do a spring meetup. We actually already had it. It was like 2 weeks ago. But
oh, cool.
We pick a date. We send out a text, hey, what date works? And we come over to our house at night. And we have, I just go over our employee handbook. Everybody gets to meet each other because there's 3 or 4 new members that didn't know each other. So we go around the room and I usually send out like a text that says, I want you to answer these questions. I'll send them questions that are like thought-provoking information about themselves that they can share to everyone else. And It's not just like surface stuff. It's like actually got some meat to it. So we go around the circle and everybody shares, kind of some deep stuff, and it just helps. And that's how we start our year. And then, anytime you have any sort of, we have to get licensed for some of our fertilizer application people and make sure that you're paying for them to study the material. Don't just hand them a book and say, hey, you need to be ready for the test that's going to happen in 2 weeks. Make sure you pass that thing and just hand them the book. So you know what? I'm going to pay you. You keep track of your time that you study this. I'll pay you for it. We'll pay for you to drive down there. Just any of that you can do, it's just going to build that level of trust and confidence they have in you. And then in the summertime, we have what we call like our summer fun day, where we just take a day off. We plan it out ahead of time so we can move the schedule around, but it's usually like a Thursday or Friday. Everybody gets a full 8 hours paid, and we go to a park. We go to like escape rooms. We'll go to rock climbing walls.
That's just so cool.
Whatever. And it's a great time. Everybody has a good time. There's no stress because they're still getting paid. It's not like, oh, I'm missing a pay, 8 hours of pay or whatever. And when I look back, it's like, it's so worth it because these employees come back, if they start out when they're 17, they usually work through high school, work through college.
Yep.
And so I get a good 4 years out of them, and they know what they're doing. And I don't have to retrain every spring a whole new set of guys. So that's just a few things that we implement that seems to work.
Dude, that's huge. I mean, like, I'm going to be honest with you, bro. Like, this is helping me. This makes me just, as we go into spring here, right, the next month or two, and, when this podcast probably comes out, we'll probably already start getting out there. It just makes me sharp. It keeps me sharp, and this is good stuff for me. I hope it's good stuff for people listening because
let's face it. I mean, you and I, we both work at part-time jobs where, you're getting paid hardly anything.
Oh yeah.
And your paychecks were like $150, $200 every 2 weeks. And, it was like, you felt like you weren't getting anywhere. You had barely enough money to pay for your gas,
right,
and maybe your insurance on your vehicle or whatever. But you have to, I think as an employer, you have to give them benefits, even though they're not like formal benefits, if you will.
Like, right.
It's not like we're giving you health insurance or you're getting paid vacations and all this stuff. But
it's so good.
Making it fun.
It's so good. It's this whole podcast, I don't know, it's definitely inspired at this point because I was going to do a whole separate podcast on like, working with employees. And I know people are like, well, you're an owner operator. I'm like, dude, I had 30 employees working for me when I managed my Little Caesar franchise. Like I know employees. I've been there. I've hired, 50 people. I've been there, done that. I've had, a dozen to 20 plus people go through my company in the last 10 years, all positive experiences. I've never had to fire anybody because when you filter good people on the front end, you don't have to, worry about the freak show on the back end, So I've learned hiring and firing. Like I know it sounds kind of funny being an owner operator, but I've been there, done that. And so I was going to do this whole extra episode, but for crying out loud, we're doing a really good thing here. So let's just keep it going. But, hey, a couple other good tips I got for you is so echoes what you just said about helping and blessing your employees. Like, I can't tell you how many times, little helpful tips, these are just simple stuff, but I've taken my guy to a steakhouse, 20 minutes away. We get Jimmy John's and, breakfast every single morning. Well, hey, at lunch, let's go spice it up. Let's go drop $60-$70, get some prime, some fillets. And let's just have like a good, and my kid that works for me, he's like, whoa, dude, like $60-$70 dinner to him might as well be $700 at his pay grade, and,
right.
And, we're, our business is making a couple $100,000, your business making a couple $100,000. Like it's a drop in the bucket to have that loyalty and appreciation. Like I am so overly 100 times over thankful for my people. I do not take it for granted. Like I'm like, now I'll never operate my business in a position of weakness. I will firmly say that because I will not let the tail wag the dog in any aspect of my life. That's called extreme ownership. Now, that being said, I am such a servant, such a appreciative human being that everybody who has helped me, like I am so thankful. So I want to bless those people. And, I'm a big proponent that if I'm blessed, I like blessing people. I don't think because I'm blessed that somebody should take it away from me and give it to somebody. And so that's a whole nother topic. But I'm very, very, because I'm prosperous and because I'm blessed, I love to share and help other people. And so, give your employee an extra 8 hours 1 week. Hey, you just grinded it out for you 45 hours in August. He gets a $600 check. Hey, dude, I just want to give you an extra 4 hours on your paycheck this week. Well, why? Because I appreciate you showing up 5 out of 5 days when it was 92 degrees and you're 19 and I know your friends and your boys are at the beach and you decided to not play hokey pokey, not take a day off, not call in slick. I'll call it, right? And one other really quick practical tip too is by the way, when you hire, and Jeremy, you can weigh in on this topic if you believe this too, but one thing that I really want to speak on is that I see so many guys, Jeremy, they criticize that 17 to 30-year-old, let's be honest, but that 17 to 25-year-old crowd. And they always they complain, like they're unaccountable, they're uninspired, they're not motivated, they're not accountable. You know what? Here's the deal. That's just entirely not true. And I want to just kind of reframe that thought, because here's the deal. I know that there's 18-year-old kids that don't show up for your company to cut grass, but I also know that there's 18-year-old kids that will NASA plan out a spring break trip or a trip to Cedar Point or a trip to Chicago, and they will be there they will wake up at 5 a.m. They will leave at 6 a.m. on the dot. They will self-account. They will be accountable. They will plan their finances to the dollar to the T to do something that gets them motivated and inspired. So the problem isn't these kids are stupid or they're dumb or they're lazy or they're millennials. Like, dude, if you listen to who's making those statements, all I hear is, I'm not taking responsibility, I'm not taking responsibility, I'm not taking responsibility. Like, you as an owner of a company and a leader, here's the deal. I will tell you that the 17 to 30 crowd probably doesn't have a lot of those skill sets because it wasn't taught to them by their parents. And that's just the facts. Now, here's the deal. That's not bad. That's not good. What you have to do when you get these kids working for you is teach them accountability, is teach them how to be a team player. Like, for example, I burn it into my kids that work for me that, hey, listen, dude, one thing I'm going to tell you is that there's nothing you can do that's going to make me mad at you, and there's nothing you can arguably do that's going to get you fired as long as we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Now, what do I mean? Right. But here's what I say is that one thing I need you to understand is that just be honest with me. Just communicate. If you're not feeling up to it one day and you don't want to come in because you were puking all night or throwing up all night or you went out partying all night. Now, best case scenario, those teenagers and those 24-year-old kids, they don't do that, right? But, so many people at 35 are quick to judge at 20 and forget that they did all the same dumb, stupid stuff. So I'm super empathetic. But at the same point, I teach my kids accountability. I say, hey, listen, I don't know if you knew this. And again, this is why I hire a lot of kids that play sports because they're part of a team. They understand that when they call off, they hurt the team. They hurt the company. And they're part of that team. They're part of that company. So when you hire somebody, give them this brand, this identity that the team wins together, right? So they stay accountable to each other. Right? It's so easy for a kid to call in slick because there's no accountability. But when he's on a two-man or three-man crew and he calls in slick, here's what he's doing. He's hurting his other two friends because they're friends. He hurts his other two friends, and now that crew has to stay out till 7 p.m. instead of 4 p.m. And so... Right.
But those guys that, they tell you that stereotypical 17 to 25-year-old, I had some of those guys and never showed up, or they did this and they ran off in the middle of the job and never came back. That is all the leader's fault.
100%, bro. 100%.
Have you read the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink?
Dude, I've heard Jocko live. I've heard him live. So people don't, I've read his books. I've both of his books. I've listened to his podcast. Yep. Jocko's like Jocko now is saying out loud what I've spent a decade learning, Jocko's just like the main guy right now saying all this like bold leadership, extreme ownership stuff. But dude, this is how I've subscribed to this 12 years ago, and before that we had
so true. And it changes the way you think. It's like, okay, these things aren't working right. It's not their fault. It's my fault.
Right.
And so that's one thing. And
it's a tough pill to swallow.
It is, but it raises the bar. And so like when I get out in the field maybe like 20% of my time during the week. Like I'll get out and just work, and I never get on a zero turn. I'll just grab the weed eater. I'll just grab the edger, and I'm fine. I love that, and I think the employees see that, and it just pumps them up. If they can just see me grabbing a weed eater, firing that thing up, and just taking off for an hour and a half, going around light poles or whatever.
Jeremy, you're firing me up.
Yeah, I mean that. And I don't mind it because we're getting work done, we're cranking out, they're learning how to run a zero turn. I'm going to teach them how to weed eat. So when they get on a weed eater, they're going to do like I do and not, meander around and watch the geese and all that. So it all goes down. And here's another interesting thing. So we usually start at 6:30 in the morning in the summertime. That's 6:30 is start time.
Yep.
Our guys start pulling in here at 6:05, and they are all here by 6:15 every day. And they do not clock in until 6:30. And they're late. And they want to be here. They want to be here for our morning meeting. And, once in a while, one of them will be late. They'll call me and say, hey, I'm going to be a few minutes later. They'll text me or whatever. But
sure, stuff happens.
It is. It's like you were saying earlier, that letting the team down type of thing is like, we're going to press on, and we don't want to do anything that's going to hinder that day.
Right. Well, and one other, dude, like here we go. You get me fired up. You know what I'm saying? And, like this is the good stuff that I just don't have time at length to talk about on YouTube. Well,
right.
Here's the deal. Let me ask you this. Have you ever heard other business owners complain that, somebody's not, okay, so here's a perfect example. Imagine this visual. You see your guy out there, he's on the stand-on mower, he's going up to the house, and there is a newspaper or a styrofoam cup, and he just mows right over it. Right? And here's the deal. Here's the funniest thing that I hear so many people complain is that they go, these 18-year-old kids, they just don't make them like they used to. And they just complain. They throw that kid under the bus. But let me ask you this, like for real, like you got to do this, not you, Jeremy, but people need to do this self-check, the self-evaluation. Honestly, tell me, would you have picked the cup up? Have you picked the cup up? And let me ask you this, has your employee seen you pick up the cup? Because if you're running over Gatorade bottles, I guarantee you, your employee goes, oh, shoot, you can run over a Gatorade bottle? I'm going to run over a Gatorade bottle. There's no repercussion. We don't know that they're a blank slate. And so how you start them with that high standards, people are like, well, that sounds a little mean or a little abrupt. No, it's just, dude, if you don't condition your kid not to run across the street at, 3 years old, he will never make it to 23 years old. Right. So people are like, well, I'm being mean to my kid. No, you're setting up your kid for success. You're starting up your employee with a high standard up front. Now, of course, you sandwich everything. You do the 1-minute manager thing. All these different leadership skills. But here's the bottom line. It's a reflection on you. It's a reflection on your leadership. It's a reflection on how you train. And, again, all my employees, they see me all the time, dude. I have no problem picking up trash. I have no problem picking up a weed whip. I am not better than anybody. And I just see people, dude. Everybody hustles in the beginning, and then people get lazy. They get fat and lazy, and it's not like physically fat. I'm just saying you get mentally lethargic. And I say all these things, and people think they're hyperboles, Jeremy. They're like, you never quite own success. You can only rent it. Rent is due every single day. Like this isn't a soundbite. You have to put this in your bones. When you're running a company and you're trying to grow, how do you spell leadership? EXAMPLE. Like these aren't just motivational quips you hear on Instagram. Okay, like those people telling you this stuff, they don't practice it, but these things like John Maxwell and Jocko, like this is how you grow companies, how you grow teams. And so
and there's times where you have to say, okay, I screwed up. And there's been times where literally, and it doesn't happen a lot, but it did happen a few, literally in tears, something I had to bring to the crew that I felt terrible about. It was something that I said to another employee, degrading them in front of a bunch of people, made them feel horrible.
Right.
And I should never, those words should never have came out of my mouth. And it did.
Sure.
And that next morning I had to say, guys, I got in, and I was in tears. Like it was not a pleasant experience, but you've got to come down to that level, because you always got to build on a solid foundation. You can't have stuff that you're like, hey, I'll just deal with that later. I'll just cover that one up. And, they will see that, and they will use that next time as a crutch to not do it 100%.
Sure.
So
that's huge.
Yeah, sometimes you have to tear something down just to get to the bottom.
Right.
And say, look, guys, I screwed up on this. This is what I said. This is what I should not have said. Start from there. Do
you think people respect you less, or do they respect you more in your experience? Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah, way more.
That's what I believe.
Because have you ever said
I don't know? and thought you looked like an idiot, but people respect you more.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people who ask me questions more about like business, related questions, or like, what's your margin and all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't have a good answer for them. Kind of makes me look stupid, but yeah, sometimes I just don't, in certain areas, and you just got to be honest with them.
See, and that's just being, here's what John Maxwell calls it. He calls it the velvet covered brick. Right? Like you have to be solid, you have to be firm, you have to know your stuff, but dude, have sympathy, have empathy for people, like that's why I'm so kind, like people just are, sometimes behind the scenes, even doing YouTube, are just so mean to me, but I'm like, hey, no problem. You love on them, you care on people, you try to be empathetic, and here's the deal, you just keep trying to do a good job,
Really quick story while we're talking about this.
Yeah.
I interviewed this girl. This was probably about 6 years ago. She was in college and she wanted a part-time job. My office was at my house. She came to my house and I saw her pull in the driveway and she ran into the back of my pickup. This is her job interview. And like, I was kind of like looking through the blinds. So I didn't know I figured she didn't see me standing there, but in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this is a test. How is she going to be? How is she going to deal with this? Like, I would have been mortified.
Right.
So she comes up to the front steps, and the first thing she said was, I just ran into your truck. And, like, she was hired right there. Like, in my mind, she was hired.
Accountable.
And she's the girl now that is my right-hand person in the office with a company vehicle. And
that's so cool.
It just, you can just tell someone right away if they're going to be honest, if they're going to be straightforward, or if they're going to try to hide something.
Right.
And that makes a huge difference right there.
Well, I the whole umbrella I'll put over this last half hour, dude. And I'm sorry, this you just get me fired up. I get so passionate, and it's such a huge topic and pain point and bottleneck for people. And here's what I'll say is that take pride and be, have fun with teaching and training people, just be empathetic, care about them. I know that these people, I'm giving them life lessons and life skills that I think will pay dividends for them for years. And assume nothing, don't pander, don't patronize. But at the same point, you're not raising kids, you're raising adults, right? That's a parenting thing I've always heard. And just same with your employees. Don't train your employees so they get stuck with you. Train your employees so they want to take over your role and you can promote them and you can give them leadership. Or in my case, I know these kids are only going to be with me for 2-3 years. I'm gonna teach you some good stuff, dude. Like, I want to be an example when I'm in the truck. I'm not trying to frickety frack and watching stupid stuff and looking at stupid stuff when I'm in the truck and trying to relate. I want to lead. And I'm not going to try to stoop down to their level. I want to pull them to my level, and that's that's called being a servant. That's also called being a leader. And the only way to be in a real leadership role is by having people following you. And in my my opinion, the best way is by servant leadership. And so you got to be willing to do every role. You got to be willing to help your people and then empower your people, spend time with them, invest in them. I mean, the whole deal, Okay, so we're already going off for time. I apologize and also appreciate your time. So
I feel like I'm kind of getting to the point where we're exhausting my mind a little bit. So this has been awesome though, and I picked up so much just on your comments that you've thrown in there as well.
Sure. Well, here, I'll do this. We'll wrap up last minute or two with any open mic, any thoughts that you want to leave the people that are listening with any final tips, maybe the Jeremy 5 to 10 years ago, or the guy maybe in that next season that you're in right now as they continue to grow to a 500,000 plus company, and any pearls of wisdom that you want to leave with those guys while we got you?
Yeah. So I would just say basically any good thing in life, whether you're building your business or you're out building something in your backyard, you got to build on a solid foundation and take your time and do it right and keep a clear mind, keep a clear conscience, stay healthy, both spiritually, feed on things that are positive. I go to church twice a week. Tonight I'll be going to church. It's Wednesday. We go Wednesday night. We go Sunday.
Yep.
And we're on earth for a short time, and there's an eternity awaiting, and we all want to be in the place where there's bliss and joy. And that's where my goal is. It is hard to sometimes focus on that all the time because there's definitely things on this earth that distract and want to take away. But feed on the things that are positive. There's so much negativity and there's so much evil in this world that you can get involved with. But just stay clean, stay on the right way, and the blessings will come. And it may not be blessings of wealth and nice shiny trucks, but it'll be a blessing that when you put your head on the pillow at night, you know you've given it 100%, and it is well with your soul.
Gosh, that's so good. It's you always got to stay true north, bro. Like it's not lip service to Liz and I, man. Like I know that we're here's how the optics I look at it is that, and I heard this a while ago. It changed everything for me. Was I don't own a single thing. I'm just a steward. I don't own my business. I don't even own my marriage. I don't own my YouTube channel. I don't own any of it. I'm just a steward with these blessings that are given to me. And, we're not going to go down the parable of the talents right now. But you know the story, so do I. And my role is to perform. My role is to be obedient and do a good job. And if you're listening to this, man, whether you're a person of faith or not, it makes no difference. Here's to me, I just want to tell you to, pursue truth. To help you have these guiding principles. I think they'll be extremely important with you. I see Jeremy right now just being blessed abundantly, and there is some reasons for it. So if you want to go down that rabbit hole, I know both of us would encourage you to do that. But here's the deal: it's Fullerton Unfiltered. I'm not here to preach at you, right? So Jeremy, my aunt right now. Everybody's always like, "Are you gonna grow your YouTube channel? Are you gonna grow your business?" All these questions, right? And then somebody else is like, "When are you running for senator?" I'm like, "Senator?" I'm like, because I just yell at people and I just want to help people. And then my aunt, who's super cool, she's a cougar, dude. She's awesome, and I say that like lovingly, but she's 100 miles an hour, and she goes, "When you starting your mega church?" I'm like, "Mega church?" She's like, "I know it." She's like, "I'm telling you," and I'm like, well, I haven't felt that tap on the shoulder. I pray to Jesus I don't get called to do that But she's like, once you get the touch, honey, you have to do it. So just get ready. I'm like, I don't want to accept that. So anyway, I'm just having fun. But so any which way. So well, hey, I super appreciate you being on the podcast. I appreciate your time. I try to end the podcast by saying that, but it's not lip service. Like, you're a busy guy, busy business, a big family. So just sincerely, dude, thanks so much for being on the show. We really appreciate your time.
And thank you, Brian. I mean, it takes so much time. I can't even imagine to do what you're doing, and all the content that I've seen, it's been positive. And I think there are so many young people learning from you. It's just a great service. So I want to say thanks for what you're doing as well.
100%, brother. Well, the feeling's mutual, and we're on this ship together, man. And just trying to pay it forward and help the 10-year-ago Brian's law maintenance, who was young, dumb, and broke. So but
yep, that's awesome.
All right, guys. Well, hey, this has been another episode of the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. Guys, if you haven't left us a review by now, I don't know what you're waiting for. Do us a big solid. Really help the podcast. Help me out. Help Jeremy out. Hit 5 stars on the podcast. We super appreciate those reviews. And if you want to leave a couple nice comments or a paragraph, we super appreciate that. But hey, we'll wrap it up right here, guys. It's been another episode of the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. We look forward to catching up with you guys on the next episode. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast with Brian Fullerton. We hope you enjoyed this production. If so, please consider leaving us a 5-star review for the show. While the techniques and ideas presented here are designed to help you grow a more successful and profitable business, no one can guarantee these results for you. We want to emphasize that entrepreneurship is not easy, and the ideas presented here are just the opinions of Brian Fullerton and his respective guests. No one can guarantee success for you. That being said, we hope the ideas presented here help you and motivate you to go on out there and crush it with your own business.
Fullerton Unfiltered Podcast.
Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode.